What's the topic
evening.
tonight?
Pardon?
What's the topic tonight?
What's the topic tonight?
You
The
know.
topic tonight,
Yeah.
courtesy of Sonia, is sadness. To be honest, I haven't actually given much thought to what I'm going to talk about.
So you're happy all the time?
I know no sadness.
We could talk about anything. It doesn't have to be about sadness.
No, we will, because that's what was suggested, and that's what we'll talk about. And, you know, I'm sure by being mindful, I will channel. And there's things. There's always things. We'll start with an exercise.
What we're doing, are we doing one or the clapping one?
I don't know, we can clap, we haven't clapped for
Yeah, I like the clapping
We
one.
like that.
There's enough of
I've never done
us.
the clapping
It's
before.
hard.
Is it? Oh, I don't do
Have you not done the clapping?
No, so I've been
Oh.
You have.
No, we've got enough of us to do the clapping.
Okay, you'll like this one.
Yeah.
There's no pressure. There's no pressure. There's never pressure. Oh yeah, but you can clap your hands together. I'm not going to make you rub your head and pat your belly and then clap and do it. No, it is just clapping. So this is how it works. When I clap, you clap. And we all clap together. And the aim is that it sounds like one clap. It's all a bit zen, but it's very simple. So we'll just do it and see what happens. So everybody ready? Hands ready. When I clap, you clap. Not bad. First one wasn't bad. Often it's a bit ropey. That was pretty good.
Concentrate so hard.
Your hands are out here, and mine are here. I'm just trying to work out what's the best way to do it.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Here we go. Right. Just relax. Beautiful. Two more. Excellent. And the reason that we do that, for those of you that haven't experienced that before, is it's about awareness. It's about cultivating awareness of what's happening right now. And the question I always ask people, whenever I do any workshops, I always do that one as a starter, because it's quite fun. And I say to people, while we were doing that exercise, what were you thinking about? Who was thinking about what they've done today, or what they're going to do after whatever it is that it's being done? So I'll ask you, what were you thinking about when we were doing that? Nothing at all. You weren't thinking about anything.
I was thinking, I hope I get this.
Were you sad when you didn't? Upset. But you exactly right. You weren't thinking about anything else. You were just in this moment, aware, with your awareness centered on, not necessarily on me, but your awareness centered on that action. Just, not necessarily waiting for it to happen, but just being aware so that you could respond when it was appropriate to respond. And it's a beautiful exercise to do, because there is no better illustration of mindfulness than that. It's so simple. You're just clapping. And yet, when you say to people, what were you thinking about when we were doing that exercise? And they go, well, nothing. I was just watching you. And I say, yeah, exactly. You were just aware of what was happening in that moment. And they get it then. They get it so much more than, even more than when you do the sitting exercise and we say about engaging with your senses, connecting with your senses. Again, it's a very simple thing to do, but for some people it can be difficult. And then certainly when you start talking about the breath, and which again in itself is a very simple thing to do. Just be aware of breathing. People expect it to be something deeper. They expect it to be some gateway into some glorious meditative state of enlightenment. And certainly for me, that's not what mindfulness is about. This isn't about having some transcendental experience. This isn't about opening your third eye to the mystical realms of whatever. It's poppycock. It's about just being aware of this moment in time right now. Just accepting that, being aware of it and embracing it and being alive. And the clapping there is no finer illustration or example of what that's all about. Just not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, just what's happening now. Okay. Right. Sadness. The first, when I have given I'd lied when I said I'd not considered it at all. I'd given a little bit of thought around this, certainly when Sonia suggested it. And I suppose the first few things that I began to, I won't say think about, but become aware of, was that kind of, I suppose, the definition of sadness, or the causes of sadness. Because often over the course of the weeks that we've talked, there have been several emotional states or feelings, situations which we have talked about. And we've talked about stress, we've talked about anxiety, we've talked about quite a few of those negative aspects. Last week we spoke about patience, and that alongside patience there is this dissatisfaction with what's happening now, and so we must be patient in order to wait for whatever situation we're in now to change to something that's more acceptable. And so I thought, okay, well, sadness, where does that fit in? Is it something completely different, or is it? What is it?
It could be the same emotion.
It is, yes, but it's emotion, and it can be prompted by, it can be. I suppose it can be fueled by those other things. If we are suffering with anxiety, that can make us feel sad. If we are stressed, that can make us feel sad. If we are dissatisfied with the situation that we find ourselves in, that can make us feel sad. And then there are situations and events that can make us feel sad. When a loved one passes away, or not necessarily even a loved one, somebody that maybe we associate with, or a famous figure. When David Bowie passed away, lots of people felt very sad about that. Not necessarily because they had an emotional attachment to him and to what he'd created, but just in his passing, it made people feel sad. So that can cause us to feel sad. When we, as you were saying in the beginning, what prompted you was, you got that news about your granddad and his health. It made you feel sad. Now, I suppose most of the emotions that we feel, they exist for a reason. Within, we'll talk about the I suppose the confines of normal people, because there are people that think and feel differently. Sociopaths and psychopaths have slightly different responses and emotions to normal people. And so, sadness exists for a reason. In the same way that anxiety exists for a reason. It prompts these chemical changes in the body, it causes us to think differently. And I suppose something like anxiety, the reason why it exists, the reason why it is unpleasant, is because it should trigger us into a response. If you think about it in terms of our historical past, before we were the human beings living in this modern world, back when I often talk about this, when we were back in primal times, when we were hunter-gatherers, and all of these physiological and psychological states developed for a reason, in order to keep us alive, so to fuel that fight or flight response and all that kind of thing. Anxiety developed at the same time, because it should be the trigger for us to effect some kind of change. If we're anxious about this situation, then we should do something or change the way we respond to it in order to make it different, in order to survive, in order to be able to continue the species. But sadness doesn't really fit into that same category, does it? Sadness, true sadness, proper sadness, the kind that we've just been talking about, when we lose a loved one, when a relationship comes to an end, whatever, those kind of things that cause us to feel sad. That doesn't happen because there's a psychological thing that is trying to prompt us into effecting some kind of change. That kind of sadness is an emotional response, and it is is it the flip side?
That's exactly what I had in my head. Flip side. It's the flip side of happiness.
It's the flip. Well, almost not necessarily the flip side of happiness. I was thinking that it was related to love.
Love and sadness.
But love brings happiness.
Love brings happiness, and love is a very human thing. We some of us perhaps believe, I have a pet dog and my dog loves me. No, it doesn't. Not in that.
You love it.
Yeah, not in that way. Your dog displays affection towards you. Your dog shows companionship. Does your dog love? If Zaza was here, Zaza would say, "Of course, my dog loves me. It loves me unconditionally." But it's not the same. The very human expression of love and the human desire for it, because we want to be loved, we want to love others. I believe. I think that's a very much a part of what makes us human, what differentiates us from other forms of life. Some would argue that it's our capacity for conscious reasoning and being creative, being the great problem solvers that we are, and the resourceful beings that we are. I don't think so. I think that the animal kingdom demonstrates a huge amount of resourcefulness and creativity, and the way nature. You only have to look at nature to see creativity at its very best.
Have you seen that bird that makes a nest, like in a little cave, that that sits there. It makes everything neat. It puts things in certain places. And if one thing's out of place, the female will just ignore him.
That's it. That's it. You bobbed it, mate.
Yeah,
Not
mate,
this
puts
year.
all that creativity in,
Yeah.
and then it has to be critiqued.
Yeah. I know that feeling. But yes, we humans are resourceful and creative and do all that kind of stuff. But it's our capacity to love other people, which really sets us apart. And if you ask me, it's that which is. I often say that being alive is the greatest thing that there is, the greatest gift that there is, being alive in this moment. And if you want to look for a purpose for life, then it's an opportunity to express love and experience love, because when you do, it's fantastic. Has everybody here been in love?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately. We have. And I don't just mean, with our husband, wives, partners, or whoever. I'm a parent.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot there.
And the love that for me, that was remarkable. When certainly when my daughter was born, one of the things that I found most overwhelming was suddenly, loving this person who I didn't know. You could say I've always loved my parents, but they've always been there. Even before I was aware, before my conscious awareness developed, and I was aware that I had affection towards them, they were always there. Whereas, when my daughter was born, and also my son, I love my son equally. I don't want to omit him from the equation here. But this day they weren't there, and then this day they were there, and I loved them. I just did, and it came from nowhere. Just absolutely loved them and would do anything, to protect them and to care for them. And I don't think that is a mechanism for continuation of the species. I don't think that's what it is, because you see animals caring for their young. Insects, I don't believe. Can insects express and feel love in the same way as we can? I'm sure there are some people that argue that they can. You could say that love transcends, and love is life, and it just perpetuates through everything.
I know slugs love each other, don't they?
Is it?
Oh yeah. But I've seen that in mum's back garden, what they're doing. Rude.
No, I don't know. You see, that's it. And I don't know.
That's
because
procreation.
that's it. Yeah,
love.
that is a different. That's the thing, though. You see, that's different. That is
I
different.
trust humans confuse it. Love
We do.
procreation.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
We do. Exactly right. We do confuse those two. We do associate
Love and lust.
sex
Yeah.
with love, and they're completely different
Yeah.
things. I don't know why I'm doing that.
Yeah, well,
Subconscious.
sorry off on sadness.
But
Talk about slugs.
I'm talking about slugs. Well, that's the nature of, welcome to Mindfulness Group.
Yeah.
It's
Who
a
knows?
magical mystery
What's it
tour.
called? Happy group, isn't it?
Happy crappy group.
Very out there, isn't it?
Oh dear.
So
Can
love.
you stop doing that? Because I'm trying to.
Oh,
This
is
But
not
that's my
exercise.
natural. It's just my natural. It's more like a tick.
If we start clapping, you know why.
Love is a very human thing, and it's something that we crave. It's something that, in terms of, and how many songs have we written about it? Better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, maybe it's a bit sickening and a bit twee and a bit churlish, but there's a lot to it. It's not specific, but love is a very human thing, and if you're looking to find true happiness, even if you're not able to love other people, you can love life and love being alive, and you can feel love for that.
You got to learn to love yourself first.
And you have got to love yourself. You have got to demonstrate and feel love for yourself and for your own life, for your own being, and that's tied in with gratitude as well, being grateful.
What happens if you don't feel loved? Because a lot of the time I feel like that.
Well, that's it, and that is a cause of great sadness.
I mean, my daughter says she loves me, but that's only when I give her money.
Yeah, that's what I meant about the flip side. The flip side of love. If you don't feel that you can dispense it, or not dispense, if you are not able to show it to others, and also you do not feel that you receive it from others, that's a cause for great sadness. It is. So what do we do about it? Where does the mindfulness fit in?
I'll just go on the beach and do it.
You never get over sadness.
And you get over sadness?
There's different
Question.
levels of sadness.
Pardon?
I think there's two different levels of sadness.
There are levels of sadness. Yeah.
I think there's sadness
You
and
can
then
feel a
there's depression.
But that's what I'm saying. When I started off, I said, how does it relate to depression, to anxiety? Is it a different thing? Is it all? Because are these just labels? Is all of that just a label that we've invented in a way to try and describe how we feel at any one time? Because being mindful is about trying to transcend the labels, to remove the labels.
Everything we've discovered about ourselves are just human constructs.
To an end. Well, if we try and explain it and describe it, then it is, because the only way that we can do that is through language. Even if we don't vocalise it, even if we don't say it out loud, if we think it, if we try and analyse it and think about it, and ask the question, how do I feel today? Oh, I feel like this. Even if you're just doing that in here, you're using language in order to construct that, and you're applying labels.
Some people might say, I'm feeling fine, but it doesn't mean to say you are fine, does it?
Exactly. So being mindful is about being aware, but without applying those labels.
Makes me think of that term lost in translation, because in some countries they have no concept of things we do in the West.
Because they have no
word for it.
That's it.
And they don't have a concept, and they see these things and come to the West and they can't comprehend it at all. Because we all think in language.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right.
Every thought we have, we put words to it.
Yeah. And so if we can go beyond, if we are able to go beyond that and just be aware, then we don't need the language, because we're not trying to explain things, label things, analyse things. We're just aware of them. And when that happens, everything starts to just merge together, and there is only what you are experiencing right now. So what's the point? What am I getting to? I don't know. Point is, there is only what you're experiencing now.
I mean,
and all you can do. Sorry, you were going to say something.
I'll let you go.
And all we can do is accept it, because whatever it is we're experiencing now is not what we will experience forever. It will change. You know, which kind of ties into your question. Can it go away?
I agree. I feel there's some parts of sadness that won't. And from personally what I'm going through at the moment, then yes, I feel sad, but I feel that the future will change. But there's also part of my life where I've had sadness of losing a parent that will never go away.
But you don't. No, it doesn't go away. And
I feel like sadness is always there.
You know, I'm sad. I lost a parent. My father died 25 years ago. And you know, is it wrong of me? But I don't feel sad about that all the time. I don't.
You get used to it.
Well, no, but I don't, because if I think about it, and remember, you know, if I sit and remember stuff that I used to do with my dad when I was a kid, or if I sit here and think, oh, you know, it's such a shame that he didn't get to meet his grandchildren and do all that kind of thing. Yeah, it makes me feel sad. But one, that's a pointless thing to do. So I can't change it. I can't do anything about it. I can't change the fact that 25 years ago he passed away. I can't change that. That relationship with his grandchildren, there's nothing I can do about that. So for me to think about that is pointless, you know, and goes against everything that we talk about in terms of being mindful. That's just a waste of time and emotional energy. For me to get upset about that is pointless. Almost for me to feel sad about it is pointless, because I'm feeling sad about something that I can't change, that I have no control over. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one because sadness is not something that we can control. But then none of the emotions really are. They just happen. We feel them, and all we can do, or the best thing we can do, is just to be aware of them. Be aware of how we feel. And if we feel sad, we don't try and label it. We just sit with it. Go, you know, this is how I feel. Not saying I feel this, but this is how I feel in this moment. But aware of the fact that it's not how you're always going to feel. Because, yeah, you know, we can revisit the past through our memories, and it can conjure up emotions. It can conjure sadness. But again, I just have to be aware of the fact that, you know, in this moment, thinking, you know, while I'm talking about my dad, I could say, in this moment, I am experiencing a memory. I am remembering something that we did. And my emotional response to that memory is to feel this way. Not gonna, you know, let's not label it. But that's what's happening in this moment. It's not me going back in time. It's just what's happening now. And so, you know, maybe to bring that into context in kind of terms of, you know, stuff that you've talked about, stuff that you've talked about, something. You know, there was an event that happened, but we can't change what happened. We can't change what happened a couple of weeks ago. That happened. You can think about it in this moment, but just be aware that that is only thought that's happening in this moment. And if it makes you feel a particular way, don't label it, just experience it in this moment. But what you can do is you can be aware of the fact that that feeling fluctuated or fluctuates. You know, when we were talking about slug sex,
Next week's subject.
maybe. But when we were talking about slug sex, you probably felt different to thinking about slug sex. Makes you feel. You don't have to. I'm just using it as an illustration and an example because it's funny.
Yeah.
You just don't know though, do you?
It's funny.
Or somewhere between being amused and disgusted. disgusting.
It is, well, exactly. But the point I'm making is, you think about that, and it makes you feel a particular. Maybe it makes you feel revulsion. Maybe it's just funny, and it makes you feel like that. And it's just that is a response to a thought. You know, and how you feel thinking about that is different to how you feel thinking about the events that took place 2 weeks ago. It fluctuates. And that's what has happened. It's not that there is. If sometimes we like to feel that there is this underlying sadness, and it's always there. It's not true. It's not true. So I think sometimes we like to. It's part of the human condition to want to hold on to things,
Even if they're negative.
Yeah, we do. I mean, there's something that you've talked about in terms of the group, the other group.
Oh, that group.
The other group.
Yeah.
Where there are some people who have a propensity to hold on to and feel defined by the labels that have been given to them.
Yeah.
And you know, if you talk to them, they say, "Oh yes, there's always this underlying feeling, this underlying
illness, like a badge of
condition."
honor.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't get that.
And it's kind of like it's always there.
They don't want to improve. They don't want to move on from it.
And they don't want to accept the fact that it's not always there. It's only there when either it surfaces, because it does, or they think about it and they bring it into, they bring it into their consciousness, they bring it into their awareness. In the same way as, slug sex is not always there, only when we think about it, and when I say it, as I keep doing, does it bring it under the spotlight, for want of a better word? It's not like that. Alan Watts talks about life being like a piece of music, and I suppose, and it's something that other people have written about as well. They talk about orchestras, symphonies. A symphony played by an orchestra is greater than the sum of its parts. The experience that you have when an orchestra plays together, it's not some violins and some trumpets and some percussion and some of this. It's all of it coming together and creating something which is greater than the sum of its parts. And it's a good illustration because the way the instrumentation works with a symphony is it's not everybody playing together all the time, is it? The conductor doesn't just go, and the entire orchestra all play at the same time. It doesn't. It's like flutes do a bit, violins do a bit, maybe there's one or two instruments that are kind of playing, but generally there isn't. Generally, the different groups of instruments and the different sections come in and out at different points. Very rarely, in fact, probably never. Let's put it out there. Let's put it on the line. Never do you have even one instrument playing continuously. The only one I can think of that may be a bit like that is bolero. I used to play percussion, and I played the bolero, and there's the snare drums in it. And it does play from the beginning all the way through to the end. But it's not playing a continuous note, it's playing lots of different notes. There are still pauses in between, even though it gets faster and louder. There's still pauses in between.
I'm just trying to think what that is. If I've heard it.
Paul Van Aberdeen dance too.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds a bit like the Doctor Who thing.
Yeah.
It's not. you know, that I played that. I played the snare drum in that, and you are playing all the way through, but it's not one continuous note. It's not like a violin playing one continuous note. You're playing lots of different ones with little pauses in between. So even then, it's not like it's this continuous undercurrent. And that's what some people think is happening with their negative emotion, that it's always there. It's not. It might be like the snare drum in the bolero, seemingly constantly going at you, chipping away, but it's not. There are pauses in between. There are pauses in between, even if they're only small ones. And that's what we can begin to understand and experience and be aware of if we are mindful. The more mindful we become, the more aware we become of those tiny pauses. And actually, you know, there's more space than there is. There's more space between the notes than there is notes, if that makes sense. You know, what was it? My friend was on a radio show with me today, and he said an interesting fact talking about space. Because as you may or may not know, we are made up of atoms, are we not? Everything is made up of atoms.
So that's right.
Now what? An atom, actually, the amount of an atom that is stuff is a very, very tiny amount. You know, you've got the nucleus, you've got some electrons going around it, and then in amongst all that is nothingness, space. And my friend Kester, who did the radio show with me this week, said, if you were to take out all of the space between the atoms and inside the atoms and compress all of the matter together, for every single person alive on this planet, 7 billion people, you get 7 billion people, you take out all the space in between and compress the matter down. How big do you think it is? What's the equivalent to? An apple. One apple. 7 billion people. The actual, 7 billion people. You take out all the space in between the particles within the atoms and squish it down, and it's the size of an apple.
Big apple.
No, just a normal-sized apple, not some kind of enormous apple, not some kind of apple the same size as 7 billion people. A normal apple. And that, as an illustration of accepting that there is space where we maybe don't think that there is. There's actually less of us than we think there is. Which is great if you're morbidly obese, you can say, actually...
So we're less than the sum of our parts, you're saying?
Well, no, we can't. I don't know, that's the topic for next week. Let me think about that one.
Yeah, there is a lot of music. There's music out there that make me sad, and there's music that make me happy.
Yeah, let's go back to sadness.
Yeah.
We're getting a bit
what
metaphysical.
kind of music do you like?
Oh, all sorts, but one person that always cheers me up, that makes most people miserable, is Leonard Cohen.
But that's because he's a poet.
And I find his songs about misery uplifting.
But because he's a
And I
poet.
can pop along
Because
to it. And people go, why are you listening to that? It's miserable. Go, actually, it makes me happy. Because I think my life can't be that bad. It's music.
I like the 80s and the 90s when it just brings back memories when I was a teenager. That makes me happy. But certain Pink Floyd songs makes me sad, especially one, Wish You Were Here. That always gets me, that one. But yeah, music's quite good for
music is because music...
Associated memories.
Music transcends... To listen to music, you have to just experience it. You can't analyse it. You can't label it. It's like when you're listening to a symphony or you're listening to Dark Side of the Moon, you just have to experience it as it unfolds. You can't be listening to it but thinking about what's just happened. You can't be listening to it thinking about the bit that's going to come up next. You can't be listening to it and thinking, that's the bass guitar playing this, that's the drums playing this, that's this playing that. You can do it a little bit, but then you're not experiencing the music, you're not enjoying it, you're not actually listening to it. To actually experience music and for it to touch you like that, you just have to listen and experience it without labelling it.
I do my daughter's music.
Yeah.
Because she's an emo.
Yeah.
She's going for that stage. Her music is absolutely...
And that's how we must approach life. And, you know, in the same way as music can make us feel sad if we're going to put a label on it, or it can make us feel happy. Life does the same, but it fluctuates and it moves. And it's just how, the only thing that there is what there is now. And if it's sadness, the best we can do is just accept it. Not label it, not try and analyse it, not try and think, why am I sad?
How do you accept it when at times it can be unbearable to be with?
That is the skill and the art, and that is where practice comes in, and that's what we should strive towards. Being able to, if you can accept it, then you will be able to go
How
beyond
do you accept it if it's that bad and I don't want to feel like this? How do you accept something that is that horrible?
It will never last, so will it?
by accepting the fact that and understanding the fact that it is transient, that it is fluid, that it is possible even when you feel sad to think about slug sex and feel different.
Well, I think
You're going to be worried about that now, aren't you?
I can't unthink that now. It's there
Well, no, but that's what I mean.
That's the
It's-
answer to it.
Google it, wouldn't you?
Maybe that is the answer. Maybe that is the answer. But what happens is
That's
if
why I'm going to get a t-shirt done.
you connect
Whenever
with
you're
your
sad, think about slug sex.
Yeah.
There we are.
you connect with your
You've
breath.
answered it.
Just think about Sonia, then you'll think of something.
You're going to run your own group now.
You connect with your breath and you become aware of the stillness that exists between your breaths, and all other thought disappears. And also the sadness and things like that begin to evaporate, disappear. And it breaks the cycle. And you begin to become able to accept something because you realise that it is fluid, it's transient. It's not some concrete thing that we've placed wherever we've placed it, in here or here or in here or wherever it might be. Let's breathe.
My head around the slug sex.
We'll breathe. Where's your bowl?
Say
I haven't even got the bowl out. Pardon?
Oh,
Lost your bowls now.
I've not lost the bowl.
There's a mindfulness group for slugs somewhere, and they're giggling about human sex.
Yeah.
Well, seriously, I really do think that insects must love each other.
They're not insects.
Oh,
Oh,
not
no.
insects, but you know what I mean.
let's just breathe.
But you see, that's it. Maybe maybe the animal kingdom does. You know, because it doesn't label it. We've labelled it. We've called it this thing called love. Maybe it's just an essential part of life, whatever it is that makes us alive. Maybe love is an essential part of that. I don't know. We've just put a label on it, removed the label, and it's just part of being, and it flows through everything. I don't know the answer. You know, that's something to meditate on.
I might Google it later on again.
Don't Google it, just meditate on it. Google doesn't know it. Google's not being mindful. Maybe you should ask Google. Google, are you being mindful? See what it says. If you've got that Siri thing on your phone, you could ask your phone, Siri, are you being mindful?
Siri, what do you know about slug sex?
Do you know, you can...
And it'll probably tell you all about it.
I'll
Right.
forget it later on.
Yeah,
You may close your eyes if you wish. And I invite you to draw your attention to your breath. Become aware of breathing in, breathing out, and the pause that exists between breaths. And for the next few minutes, just practice following the breath in, out, and pause. And if your mind wanders, bring it back to the breath. And as you do that, I shall invite the ball to sound. Become aware of the fact that in this moment, as you follow each individual breath as it happens, you are not thinking anything, you are not doing anything, you're just being alive, just breathing. Aware of air entering your body, aware that air then leaves your body, and then aware that there is a pause, there is a stillness. If your mind wanders, it's okay. Just bring it back to your breath. When you're ready,